What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. The Washington Commanders are now 1-0, and this time it actually matters. The Washington Commanders have beaten the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday 20-16. The Commanders are now 1-0. The Cardinals now 0-1. It was not pretty, to say the least. The Commanders came into this game, I believe, a touchdown favorite over Arizona, maybe a little bit less than that, but they were pretty heavily favored heading into this game, and it wasn't pretty. Washington trailed at one point this game. Josh Dobbs was pretty much throwing the ball wherever he wanted to. We'll get more into the takeaways a little bit later, but let's just start off with probably the main guy for Washington, one of the main storylines heading into this game. Sam Howell, in his first start of the year, second start that officially counts in the NFL, or second start in the regular season in the NFL. So Howell, last year, week 18, beat the Dallas Cowboys. Came into this game against Arizona, a much worse opponent, a much worse defense compared to that Cowboys defense back in week 18, and it was a roller coaster for the Sam Howell truthers out there, because Howell's final stat line: 19 of 31, 202 yards, touchdown, interception. He took 6 sacks, which we'll talk more about that when we get to the offensive line. But Howell also had 2 carries for 11 yards, including a rushing touchdown towards the end of the game to basically was the go-ahead touchdown for the Commanders, helped them take the lead, and then finished one off where Washington scored 10 points in the fourth quarter. They were down 16-10 heading into the fourth quarter, and they ended up winning this game 20-16. So Sam Howell, an up and down performance. He had on the second drive of the game, he had a really great pass to Brian Robinson out of the backfield. It was rolling out to his left, and kind of like sidearmed it past a few Cardinals defensive backs and I think a linebacker, kind of getting chased. He rolled out to his left and did it. A great throw to Brian Robinson, and Robinson brought it in and was in the end zone for an easy touchdown. But then things started to take a turn for Sam Howell. He had some great throws throughout the entire game, but he threw an interception, which the interception wasn't entirely on him. I'll have to go back and watch the all 22 to make sure it wasn't entirely on him or wasn't on him. It looked like he was trying to find a receiver downfield, and then it was tipped at the line of scrimmage, and it kind of redirected the ball or altered the ball's path, and it ended up in the hands of Zaven Collins for Arizona, which wasn't great, because watching it, all the momentum, they're going to go down, they're going to score again, and it didn't happen. So it was a very interesting first half. It was great until like the final it was like the second half of the second quarter, like the final 7 minutes of the second quarter. Things started to get away from Washington. You had the interception that Sam Howell threw, and then led to a Cardinals field goal. Very next possession, Antonio Gibson in the red zone fumbles the football. That was the second turnover of the quarter for Washington, and then it didn't lead to anything because the Cardinals punted away, but it was points given up. Gibson, they were inside the red zone. Great drive from Sam Howell and company, but Gibson fumbled it, and it which isn't great. But a punt from both sides, and then punt from the Cardinals, and then a chance for a 2-minute drive with 1:28 to go in the second quarter, or in the first half, and Sam Howell gets sacked for 14 yards by Gardeck and fumbles it. Gardeck got the strip sack, and then it was recovered by Thomas for the Arizona Cardinals touchdown. So it was not pretty, that end of the first half. Washington came back with a 7-play, 69-yard drive in 55 seconds to score a field goal and at least cut into the lead, because at that point it was 13-7 Arizona, 13-10 at the half. All the momentum at this point was on the Arizona Cardinals. They come out, 11-play drive, leads them to a field goal, puts them up 6, and that was it for scoring for the Arizona Cardinals, because Washington then went on to score 10 points in the fourth quarter, where the defense really stepped up. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But overall, first half it was rocky. Second half it got better, but it was more relying on the run game. I think Eric Bieniemy stepped away from the run game in that second quarter. He kind of went more reliable on the pass. Bunch of kind of just forgot about the run in that second quarter. Led to Sam Howell making mistakes because he was under pressure, and it led to some big turnovers, 3 turnovers in that second quarter for Washington. So it wasn't pretty for Sam Howell. And then in the second half, it was mostly he had some good drives and stuff, but it was mostly kind of run the clock out, setting up great field possession with a fumble that Arizona had. Arizona had 2 fumbles in 3 possessions at one point in the second half. But yeah, Washington was set up in great field position. Sam Howell went, and on the second touchdown, he scored the rushing touchdown. He was kind of looking, saw no one, then rolled out to his left and kind of just ran it in. So Sam Howell, again, this guy, second career start in the regular season. If I had to put a grade on his performance for today, I would say it was a solid B. It wasn't amazing, but it was solid. It was, the interception wasn't on him. He took some bad sacks today, which we've seen in the preseason, so we were expecting it. But also, he was under pressure a lot of the game because of this offensive line. We need to talk about this offensive line because it was atrocious. It was atrocious. Letting up 6 sacks on Sam Howell for 46 yards. It was not pretty at all across the board. Like Charles Leno, Sam Cosmi looked pretty good. Sadiq Charles was kind of up and down. He got absolutely steamrolled on one play, but Leno didn't play great. Nick Gates did not play great either. The entire left side of the line, there was miscommunication throughout the game. And then at right tackle, Andrew Wiley he was probably the worst player on the offensive line. He let up a spin move. He basically let up that fumble recovered for a touchdown for Arizona. The pass rusher just did a little spin move on him, and he got off the block, and ended up in the face of Sam Howell. Howell kind of froze up a little bit, and then kind of tried to spin out of the pocket, but did not protect the football, and he fumbled it, and it was picked up for Arizona Cardinals touchdown. The offensive line was not good, and we know we've seen it over the preseason and during training camp. We've seen it's not been great, but then during the Ravens game, I know they were playing backups, but they looked really solid. And then same with during the Bengals game as well during the preseason, they looked better than they did against the Browns starters, and it just really worries me because you got a young quarterback back there. He was taking hits the entire game. Not only was it just 6 sacks, he was getting hit play after play after play after getting dropped back after dropping back in the pocket. We really need to see this offensive line step up or make an acquisition at some point this season, because the 5 we have right now is not going to cut it this season. If we want to contend and be a playoff team, I mean, we only beat the Cardinals by 4 points. I know it's any given Sunday. Cardinals had a good game, they definitely played better than their expectations, because at one point it looked like they were going to win the game. But the offensive line needs to step up, and I'm not confident in the 5 that we have right now. Sam Cosmi is probably the brightest, he's probably the best player in the starting 5, but for the other 4, I'm not confident in them. I'm not confident that they're going to be able to, when we play the Bills, when we play the Eagles in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it's going to be you got a lot of guys across the entire line, especially the Eagles. You got 2 first-round picks, Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter in the middle, 2 big guys that we saw Sadiq Charles get beat up the entire game. He got pushed around. If Sam Cosmi can be okay during that game, that's fine. But Nick Gates didn't look great. Plus the miscommunication on one of those that led to there was miscommunication across the entire offensive line, but mostly on the left side. It led to some open rushers that were untouched in Sam Howell's face. Sam Howell, he did hold on to the ball at times for too long. I would say for too long. He definitely should have thrown it away, but it wasn't pretty for the offensive line. So that's one of the bad things that happened in this game. But let's flip the side of the ball and talk about the good, because it took some time for this defensive line to step up to what we expected them to be. I talked about over the preseason, the defensive line only had 1 sack the entire preseason, and it came in the 3rd preseason game with the 3rd stringers out there, I believe, when Will Bradley King got the sack. But heading into this game, no Chase Young, no F.A. Obata, you bring Will Bradley King onto the 53-man roster, and then he's inactive. We did not. I'll have to look at snap counts, but I believe I didn't hear the names of KJ Henry or Andre Jones at all this entire game. I don't think either of them got a lot of snaps. It was mostly James Smith Williams and Casey Toohill in the place of Chase Young, but they played fine. And in terms of the interior defensive line, it's going to be pretty good this year. Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen, that duo every year just seems to elevate their performances. Now that both of them are paid, now that we're going to be having that duo on this team for the next 3 years, I think at least it's going to be scary for inside offensive linemen and for offensive line coaches to game plan for both of them. Montez Sweat had an outstanding game, an unrestricted free agent here upcoming in 2024. Sweat finished with 1.5 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 5 total tackles, and I believe he had a fumble. He had a no. I think he had a forced fumble. I want to say. I could be wrong. I think he had a forced fumble and also a fumble recovery. I want to say as well. I could be a little bit off on that, but we'll see what happens with that with like the stats with that. But in terms of the defense in general, Cam Curl led with 10 total tackles. Jamin Davis played great, 6 total tackles. Jonathan Allen had 2 more tackles for loss and 3 total tackles, which was great. This team was getting in. It was getting in like in the backfield for sure. This offensive line for the Cardinals did not meet the standards of this defensive line for Washington. Deron Payne had 2 tackles for loss as well. It was in total 11 tackles for loss and 3 sacks in the game for this Washington defense. 67 total tackles for the entire defense. But it was great seeing the guys back in the backfield again. Again, no Chase Young, and yet we still got 3 tackles. We applied a lot of pressure on Josh Dobbs. Most of it came in that second half when the momentum was really on the Cardinals' side. The defense needed to step up. Jack Del Rio was challenging this defense to step up, and they did. There was one drive that really kind of shifted the tide of this game. It was the first fumble. 3 plays, negative 11 yards. 1st and 10. Keontae Ingram, right side, -1 yards. Tackle for loss for Deron Payne. 2nd down. Josh Dobbs sacked by Jonathan Allen for 4 yards. And then 3rd and 15, Dobbs is sacked by Montez Sweat. He fumbles it, and it's recovered by Deron Payne. So that drive really kind of flipped the tide. And then Washington went down, scored a touchdown in the short field with Sam Howell's rushing touchdown. But those 2 drives kind of really shifted the momentum of this game and kind of really made Washington win this game. The fans were out there. There was a bunch of fans at the game. It really looked like, I wouldn't say it was 100% sold out. I know the team said it was sold out, but there was still some seats out there. But it was packed with burgundy and gold. It wasn't packed with whatever red the Cardinals are and black. It was packed with burgundy and gold, which is great to see. Overall, the defensive line played really good. In terms of some other standouts, I would probably have to go with Brian Robinson. He had a solid game, 19 carries, 59 yards. It wasn't incredible, but he played a solid game, didn't turn the ball over at all. Chris Rodriguez got some time. I wouldn't say he's like a standout, but he got some time. He had 3 carries for 7 yards. In terms of the passing game, no one had over 55 yards for a single receiver. But Sam Howell found, 7 different receivers throughout the game. Terry McLaurin had 2 catches for 31 yards. Jahan Dotson that first quarter played really well. 5 catches for 40 yards for him on 7 targets. But it wasn't really like the second half. It was more ground and pound for Washington. They got back to the ground game. Cam Curl played really well. Benjamin St. Juste played great, in my opinion. Emmanuel Forbes was a guy that he had his ups and downs throughout the game. But when the biggest moment came up, he stepped up. 4th down. I think it was 4th and 15. I want to say maybe it might have been a little bit less than that. 4th and 10. It was 4th and 10, and Josh Dobbs tried to find Michael Wilson on like a little post route inside, or maybe it was like an in route inside. But Emmanuel Forbes broke up the pass, and he should have picked it off. Really, it kind of was behind behind Michael Wilson into the hands of Emmanuel Forbes, and Forbes dropped it. I will say there was a lot of dropped interceptions on both sides of the ball. Sam Howell should have been picked off like 3 times. He was only picked off once, but he threw 4 or 5 maybe turnover worthy plays. In terms of Josh Dobbs, he was 20. I mean, Josh Dobbs had, now looking at it, he had a solid game. 21 of 30 for 132 yards. They were kind of just controlling quick game, quick curls, all that. Never really took any deep shots, I would say. But like he had a little bit less in terms of turnover worthy plays than Sam Howell did, in my opinion. Maybe 3 or 2 dropped interceptions, including the Forbes one. So there definitely should have been a lot more turnovers than there were in this game, because both quarterbacks, like, they did not play great. So in terms of standouts, that, and then Jeremy Reeves on special teams, he was making play after play. I believe he had 3 tackles on punt returns, which was great. I believe he had, maybe it was like a half tackle on the final punt. It was the final play of the game. Trustway punts it away, and it was returned by Greg Dortch for some reason, and he went down. But I think that was a half tackle for Jeremy Reeves. But on 2 other punts, Jeremy Reeves and the special teams, like, they were swarming the punt returner, who I think was Greg Dortch for pretty much all of the game. Yeah, it was Greg Dortch. Dortch had 4 returns for a total of 24 yards, and one of those was 13 yards. So he took, like, he didn't really fair catch. He fair catched maybe one of them, but like four returns for 24 yards, like, that Jeremy Reeves was out there making play after play. Trustway looked great. He had 6 punts and 266 yards. You can do the math there for the average, but he had one of them that went like 59 yards, a 59-yard punt, 60-yard punt. So, a 59-yard punt, and 3 of them inside the 20. So, great job on special teams. That was probably the best unit in terms of offense, defense, special teams of the game. I'd say special teams was probably the best. Jamison Crowder in his first like game returning punts back for Washington, he got elevated, signed by Washington practice squad midweek. Dax Milne goes on injured reserve. Jamison Crowder then gets elevated, and he had 3 punt returns for 10 yards, his longest being 5 yards. But he had one of them that was called back because of a block in the back, which went for 15, maybe 20 yards on the return, which was really, really good. And then on a 5-yard return, he broke like 5 tackles on the way to it. So he showed a lot more agility than Dax Milne. Dax Milne kind of just fair catches everything and maybe makes one guy miss. Jamison Crowder was making people miss, and I really liked it. I really like seeing him back in a Commander's uniform. He's wearing number 83 instead of his old number. So that was pretty much all the standouts. In terms of some other stuff, some things that I didn't like. Now, the special teams was pretty good the entire game. One player that wasn't good on the special teams, and I hate to say it, but it was Cameron Cheeseman. Some of the kick, like the field goal and extra point snaps, were way off of where Trustway wants to hold the ball for Joey Sly. Way had to reach behind him, I think, one time. He had one of them hit the ground, and they had to make it like stand it back up again. And one of them was high. So Cameron Cheeseman did not. I know he was trying to make a switch in terms of how he snaps the ball, which it has not worked out for him. So we'll see what happens with him, and then like how he's going to adjust, and will he go back to his old way of how he snapped the ball? We'll have to wait and see. But it's definitely going to be something to watch, in my opinion, in terms of if you're a fan and also the special teams coordinator, because right now Cameron Cheeseman is not. He's not playing well. Which it's funny to say because he's a long snapper, but he's not playing well, and he needs to step it up, because those snaps recently have been really, they haven't been super bad, because Trustway has done a great job in terms of bringing the punt down or setting the punt up before Sly can kick it and someone doesn't block it. But it feels like something's coming, and if Cameron Cheeseman doesn't fix his snap by the Broncos game, by the Eagles game week 3 or Bills game week 3, then something's going to happen, and I don't want something to happen that's bad in a big moment of a game, especially when we play these Bills, the Eagles, where we could be in it, and it's a big game, could be a big time win, if a bad snap happens on special teams, it could be the end. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But for Cameron Cheeseman, I'm kind of starting to be worried about his snapping because it's not been great. Antonio Gibson, I think I mentioned it earlier, but he fumbled. So that he's probably in the doghouse now because that's probably the last straw. Gibson inside the red zone fumbles the football, gets it peanut punched out by someone. I forgot who, but he got peanut punched out, and it was think it was Kaiser White maybe or Dimu KJ or something like that. But yeah, Gibson, he didn't look good on the ground as well. I don't think he even played that much after he fumbled. He only had 3 carries on the game, and I believe all of them came before the fumble. So Gibson really is in the doghouse now. He had 1 catch for 10 yards as well. But yeah, Gibson's in the doghouse. Chris Rodriguez was getting some playing time on third downs, which will be interesting to watch and how it's going to be next week when we play Denver, because Rodriguez could be getting some more playing time offensively than Antonio Gibson is. Gibson also returned a kick, I think. Yeah, he returned a kick for 21 yards, but it wasn't that special. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of recapping for this Cardinals game. Next week, we will be playing the Denver Broncos, 4:05 kickoff, I believe, on Sunday. I will make sure of that, but I believe it's 4:05. The Broncos right now are playing the Raiders and are down 10-6. I saw that they onside kicked on their opening kickoff of their season and of the Sean Payton era. But like as I'm saying this, seems like Russell Wilson's doing good, 7 of 8 for a touchdown right now. So this I wouldn't underestimate this Broncos team. I know they weren't great last year. I think it was mostly on Nathaniel Hackett. They now have Sean Payton as their head coach. That's a massive upgrade. I would not underestimate them coming into this game. And I really think with how Washington played against the Cardinals this week and how so far the Broncos are playing against the Las Vegas Raiders right now, it's really going to be 50-50. And I might even say if the Broncos do come out and win this game against the Raiders, I really might say that I think the Broncos could win next week, which would be massive because Washington starting the season 2-0 before we go play the Bills and the Eagles would be huge because Washington's schedule is going to get a lot harder. This is the easiest part of the schedule right now. Arizona, Denver, then Buffalo and Philadelphia, and then Chicago on a short week. So it's going to get really tough. And it's the big stretch kind of starts right now for Washington. If they can beat the Broncos, then you play Buffalo and you play Philadelphia. You can afford to lose both of those games. Chicago, Atlanta, New York, all those games should be pretty easy, probably the easiest stretch of the season or easier stretch of the season. And then like you cap things off with Philadelphia, the Patriots, Seahawks, the Giants again, Dallas, Miami. Like it does not get easier from here. The Cardinals, it was the easiest game on the schedule. You beat them by 4. You've got stuff to work on if you're Washington and if you're head coach Ron Rivera. We'll have to wait and see. I don't think, last thing here, I don't think there was any big-time injuries for Washington, but we'll have to wait and see if there was any updates from Ron Rivera in the post-game press conference. That'll be it, though, for this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. Thanks, everyone, for watching. I'm Mason Kinahan. See you guys in the next one. Peace.